Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Good evening. Through the prayers of Holy Fathers, we Jesus Christ, our God of mercy, on us and save us. For those new here, my name is Father Joseph Swaden. I've worked in Orthodox apologetics since 1998, and I'm the founder of NFT True Orthodox and Ecumenical News since 2004. We've been in the apologetic space on Facebook since 2016 and on YouTube since 2018. If you appreciate what we do here, please like and subscribe. Today we do our live Q&A session where you can get your questions answered live as well as member-requested video reviews. So let's get started. And as always, if you want to jump on stream to ask a question, just click the link at the top of the chat. I will be taking super chats from the YouTube chat, and I will be putting up the chat on afrosinoscafe.com. So if you want your question or comment without super chatting, I'll answer it, but you might miss it if I don't put it up. So if you want to do that, you can go to afrosinoscafe.com and go into chat. Give me a moment while I add that to the screen. And so, as you may notice, we're now back in Streamyard. And part of the reason for that was, well, we've had a lot of technical issues over the past couple of days, over the past couple of shows, I should say. And Restream was having problems with certain phones. Trying to do it on directly with Jitsi on the cafe turned into its own issue. So, oh wow, that's interesting. Okay. Let me put it back. Where was I? Yep. So anyway, basically, again, if you want to get your question on stream through YouTube, do it through a super chat. God, good evening to all. God bless you. And so it's been a busy week. John said, I hope everyone had a blessed peace of St. Philaret. Father Antonios, good evening. Zelotis, your blessing. God bless you. Father Boniface, good evening. Ethan, hello. And so now that I basically went back to StreamYard because I was offered a deal I couldn't refuse, which was basically having it at the same price it was before we gave up on it. So that's, at least for the next few months, the next year, this is kind of the setup we're going for. So if you want to get on screen and you don't want to do a super chat, you can always just join the afrosinoscafe.com and join the chat there if you want to. Otherwise, I'd love it if you could support the channel with a super chat. Tonight, as I mentioned, live questions and comments. Basically, the floor is open. If you want to join in live and ask a question directly, please just click the link. It is pinned at the top of the YouTube chat. It's pinned somewhere on the Facebook chat. I don't know where because I haven't quite figured that one out yet. And unfortunately, our stream to X isn't working. So I'm going to have to try to do this again next week. Sorry about that, X viewers. For some reason, it didn't work. But we will continue to... we'll continue on anyway. So let's see here. It's been a very busy week. In case for those who have been following what we've been doing, there's a lot of personal things that have been going on. I'm trying to work on the book. Thanks to the, I will say thanks to the, a question. Okay, let me see here. Father Boniface asks, a question from a listener. When is it appropriate to begin using the Jesus prayer? As a catechumen or only after initiation? Does it require some sort of specific training? It's a great question, Father, and I will say this, that for those who are new coming into Orthodoxy and are interested, in doing the Jesus prayer, I understand that is a big source of fascination, particularly because of many of the associations with theosis that you find in a number of not only just desert fathers and holy fathers of that nature, but even among modern elders. It's very common for people to get a prayer rule of a number of Jesus prayers, even in legitimate eldership in the 19th century. It should be noted, however, that is not a starting point. Most people in those situations were already accustomed to church services. They were going to their services. They were saying their morning and evening prayers. They were going to the liturgy oftentimes. This circumstance is very different from that of many American new converts, neo converts that come in through the internet. So they read this stuff, and they assume that, hey, we're just gonna, what do you call it? Just start from doing the Jesus prayer, and that's not the way that anyone did it then, and it's not the way it should be done. If your spiritual father gives you a prayer book and you're not using it, then you got to start using it. If your spiritual father gives you liturgical readings to do, you've got to do them. And if you're not in church on Sunday because of distance, you have to do the Typica. You have to be praying with the church as a routine. Until then, I would recommend not speculating on when you're ready to read the Jesus prayer. Ask your priest. And if your priest asks you, like, what have you been doing? And your answer is, something random like I say 2 Jesus prayers in the morning and 3 Jesus prayers at night, that's not going to cut it. If you have a prayer book, because I know a lot of folks are fanboys and new converts, they buy the books and then don't open them. You have to open them. You have to do the basics. I hope that helps, but that's the basic training is living as an Orthodox Christian for real, not just in name only. It just even this weekend, one of these very popular lay apologetical YouTubers, and I'm not going to name who he is because I did on Twitter if you really want to see that. But the point is that he made this weird thing where he was talking about how the Nativity Fast is coming up. And then he was like, and I say to the men or something like that. And I don't know. I guess when, you must fast. I'm like, the women don't fast. That's weird. And then he's like, from all alcohol and something else. And I was like, wait a second. Liturgically, that's wrong. And a bunch of people were like, wait a second, you're going against what the calendar says. And so, the point is, so that's what that sort of I'm going to do it myself version of Orthodoxy comes out as. I've read this elder's book and I'm going to do this prayer and that prayer and whatever I want. And that's not how the church works. The reason the church works as it has is because it doesn't do new and creative things. You don't make it up as you go along. You do what was done before you. And for those who haven't had anything done before them and they don't know, you learn from someone who has. That's the practice of obedience that is more important than any number of Jesus prayers that you can say. Okay, let's see. And let me see if we have more questions. Hold on. Let me see here. Okay. We have a question from John who asks, is Arsenios the Cappadocian a saint in the church? Well, I've always thought of him as a blessed person in the tradition of the church. I don't know that he was formally glorified by any true Orthodox church. It's possible. I would just refer to him as, the elder Arsenios the Cappadocian or the holy elder Arsenios the Cappadocian because he did have a good reputation. But I don't know that we've added him formally to the calendar or any true Orthodox Greek body has. I would imagine that they probably did, though. Because oftentimes, like St. Nectarios was glorified by the true Orthodox before he was glorified by World Orthodoxy, so it's very possible. I just haven't researched it. My assumption was that he was, but I could be wrong. But in any case, referring to him as a holy elder because he was, and it was before the time of ecumenism, I don't see a problem with that. Let me see here. Ethan Williams says, hello. Father bless. I have been trying to figure out which synod Archbishop Makarios of Athens is in, as I saw a conference from them. They have a convent in Ontario, I believe. The answer to that question is Archbishop Makarios is a claimant to the Archdiocese of Athens, and the Archdiocese of Athens, the Church of Greece is an autonomous body. So effectively, he's the head of his synod. So I hope that answers that question. Ascender, this is a member's question. Because it's a member question only, it cuts up on the screen. Is the Kiriakite Matthewite group revisionist and problematic? I haven't studied them with care. I do know that, they obviously were not part of the Gregorian schism, which had to do with the icons of God the Father, where it was a false dichotomy of who was using the right icon, but they weren't part of that. So to my knowledge, I will say I don't think they're revisionists, but I don't know them well enough or any of their people well enough to speak on the matter. I mean, there's some telltale signs. Do they recognize St. Augustine? If they do, then that's pretty non-controversial. Are they problematic? I mean, it depends on how you define problematic. From an ecclesiastical standpoint, I don't see them as particularly problematic. There clearly was an issue in the Matthewites that hadn't been resolved. I feel like that schism was based on personalities. Are they annoying? I mean, I don't think so, but the ones I've spoken to can be a little annoying, but that's not like an actual reflection on their soul. I mean, I'm sure people think I'm annoying. So, I don't know. Oh, and by the way, for everyone named Demetrius or Dimitri, and that includes Metropolitan Demetrius of the GOC in America, many years on your feast day. This is also the feast of St. Job of Pachaev. Excuse me. And so anyone here named Job also. Let me say that. So is Arsenius the Cappadocian a saint for true Orthodox? I've wondered that for years. The answer is I'd say that let me put it to you this way. And I think this might have been corrected by the Art Talk, but it's like Theophan the Recluse. Theophan the Recluse, to my knowledge, was not formally glorified by any true Orthodox synod as of like 2000. I haven't researched the question since. But you'll find, for example, Metropolitan Valentine, even without that glorification, referring to him as the holy Vishensky recluse Theophan, and quoting him. Because just because somebody doesn't automatically have that label attached to them, there are personal devotions that grow and become an official cultus in Orthodoxy, much like we see with Father Seraphim Rose. But for me, there are a number of personal saints that have not been formally glorified by a synod. I think that probably Dr. J.J. Overbeck is a saint. I think that, Elder Theodore definitely, of Old Valam, is probably a saint who hasn't been formally glorified yet. Alexis Toth of Wilkes-Barre, in my region, I think he's a saint, even though he hasn't been formally glorified. So the question is, I'm sure he is a blessed, of holy, probably respected memory. I don't want to say blessed memory. Well, yeah, he would be a blessed memory among the true Orthodox, but I don't know that any have formally glorified him. But I could be wrong, because he had a very big cultus and to this day still does. So it is possible that they did glorify him. I just don't know. I would probably ask a Greek. Yeah, that's the best answer I can give. I don't know. But I would say this. The fact that somebody is in the holy memory of the church is enough to respect them. And I don't think you just need the title saint to automatic, just because the EP puts a rubber stamp on it should make us a little suspicious. But, the EP people that are there now weren't there when he was alive. So they would have, we don't know what their motivations were. Sometimes you have to question some of the glorifications of the EP. I just don't know what it is in that case. I would simply ask. Let me see here. Ethan Williams asks, what is up with the Genuine Orthodox of Cyprus and their autonomous church in the UK? That's the Kiriakites. What's up with them? I don't know. I don't talk to them enough. Really, I don't really have any real connections with them. Their priest, Matthew Holmes, I've spoken with a couple of times, but past that, not really. Let me see here. The interest in Blessed Arsenios is motivated by his connection to Paisios. Okay, first off, Arsenios the Cappadocian died in 1924. How old was even Paisios at the time? Because that doesn't even make it, because it says here in this life he gave Paisios his own name at baptism despite the parents' wish to name the child after a grandfather. Later he became the spiritual father of Paisios of Mount Athos. How old would he have been for that to happen? I am just curious because remember, Elder Arsenios died 100 years ago. Like, how long could he have been his spiritual father? Paisios of Mount Athos was born in 1924. This would mean that the claim that he was his spiritual father was when he was a baby. Yeah, that doesn't count. No, I'm sorry. He's born the same year that Elder Arsenios passes on. And that's enough to claim that he was his spiritual father? That's insane. If that's what they're claiming, it's silly. Yeah, I believe he's holy too. Well, Elder Arsenios proposed in November 1924, but I'm not sure of his stance towards the new calendar. I don't know. I mean, you'd have to read his life. I doubt that he would have been okay with it. I don't think he would have, because that change. When was the new? Let me see here. Using the power of AI, they adopted the new calendar on March 1st, 1923. So I guess you'd have to just look at the last days of his life and try to find the original sources. Because I'm sure since then they've probably written later stuff. Unfortunately, he's on his deathbed, I would imagine, for a few months. I can't possibly know what he thought on the matter. I can't imagine it was good. Yeah, same place. Well, first off, he wasn't the same place Elder Paisios, so we don't recognize him as a saint, especially because of his tendencies towards the recognition of the ecumenical patriarch. But yeah, this isn't a spiritual father, spiritual son relationship at all. Yeah, Saint Joseph the Hesychast is not responsible for the deviations of Elder Ephraim. Likewise, exactly. Okay, my facts need checking. Yes, they say spiritual father, but really he was just baptized by him. That's exactly right. Nobody in traditional 1924 liked the calendar division. That's my suspicion, would be that he probably from his deathbed was like, this is a horrible thing. That's the only thing I can imagine. To be fair, he reposed during the population change, and I wonder how much correspondence with his bishop. That's also true, because that was occurring as well. So yeah, I have no idea. But it took time before it was obvious that only the true Orthodox are legit. Yeah, but and by then he was already passed. So I don't think this is in any way, shape, or form controversial. So that, I think that answers that question. I pretty straightforward. He was a holy holy elder, lived a holy life, and this spiritual father thing is nonsense. You can be a priest to a baby, but a spiritual father is an actual tactile relationship which involves confession and things like. Nothing happened when he was a baby. That's just not how it works. So in any case, and the fact that he chose his name, well, Paisios is a holy name, so okay. Maybe his grandfather had a pagan name. I don't know. The point is, this is not. It's this sort of nonsense that makes, the I guess, World Orthodox and the fighting from within people look kind of ridiculous when they make these grandiose claims and then put them into things like Wikipedia, and then they have to be just taken apart for what they are. And so following the fathers and trying to do an okay reading of history suddenly puts us in this intellectual circle where it's like 20 years ago, that's what just everyone was supposed to do. But now it's like, whoa, how did he debunk that? No, it's just called look at the facts. This is terrible. Arsenios is just another version of Apollo. I did not know that. And I am just, I don't know. I mean, Arsenios, I know that there are holy fathers named Arsenios and have been for centuries. So I don't know about that. Matsuja Stephanie Dubba says, can you talk about St. Philaret of New York? Yeah. His feast was this weekend. St. Philaret, obviously, was one of the most influential hierarchs of the 20th century. Most notably, he oversaw the proclamation of the anathema against ecumenism. Before the 1983 anathema, that line hadn't been clearly drawn. And I think the world became aware of it more sharply than ever before when that happened. Sure, he had been writing to Athenagoras the sorrowful epistles, warning him to turn back from that path. But to the degree that they could just ignore letters and just say, these people are being annoying. It's another thing when you anathematize, because you are declaring that what this person is doing is heretical. So St. Philaret had been through incredible and difficult circumstances throughout his entire life, going back to his time in China and going back to what had happened to his father, who ended up supporting the MP and as a bishop as well, and ended up going back to Russia and dying. I mean, these things had an effect on him. There were attempts on his life repeatedly. And so, let me see here. What day was St. Philaret's Day? I have that as a... Hold on. Let me see here. Because it was... I want to say it was yesterday. And I have the wrong day on this calendar. And let me see. Because it was yesterday on the Eastern calendar. But I'm going to have to stretch on this. And that's actually something that I noticed. There are differences in the commemorations, and that's something that needs to be addressed. So, I noticed that there was celebration of it yesterday, but I do know, I'm just going to take down these calendars and take a better look at them. Okay. Let me see here, because I know on our calendar, let's see. Oh. Huh. That's weird. Okay. I think that, it was on Friday. The difference was a commemoration issue that I think was being addressed in the calendar, on our calendar, my Senate's calendar, because of the fact that the date of the repose of St. Philaret was on the 8th, and there was confusion over whether it was on the old or new calendar. No, Matishka, it's not on our Western Rite calendar, but it was last year. That is why I'm concerned, and I'm trying to, now that makes me wonder, because I was under the impression that his repose was on the same day as Schema Bishop Theodore, who was on the 21st Gregorian. However, the 8th Gregorian opens up the question of when was his actual death date, and was it possible that somebody got that date wrong? So this is something that I want to look at, and maybe that's why he was removed, because the date was wrong. But let me just quickly check that, and while I'm doing that, let me open up this. Yeah, you have a road court MP calendar, so I understand. But we can just look that up. That's not a problem. And we'll just get the official date. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Friday, because I would assume that since they also glorified him. Let me see here. Because almost always these are put as no. Oh. No, the feast day is, we had it right on our calendar. The feast day is, I just was happy to see it, and I was even promoting that. No, he doesn't repose for another 2 weeks. Oh boy. Wow. Okay, so we have to, well, he's not on our calendar this year, but it's the same day as Vladika Theodore. So Matsuka, you want to mark your calendar for that. According to the wiki, yeah, his repose was on the traditional calendar, November 8th, not the Gregorian calendar. So that's a mark there. Ethan asks, do you reckon Rokor MP will ever canonize him? I used to say maybe. I don't think I do that anymore. And that's because of the fact that it is, the way it works is most likely, John says this weekend was the commemoration of the uncovering of his relics. That is a good explanation. But the festal commemoration is supposed to be on the commemoration of his death, which, yeah. So yeah, it should be that. I mean, it's good that you can celebrate the opening of the relics of Saint Philaret, but it's not his actual feast day. His feast day would be the date of his death, or his earthly repose. As for, I believe it's kind of a circular thing the way it works. When all the true Orthodox agree on Saint Philaret, and it's really starting to look like that, more and more, then what happens is, once that is a unified fact, that's when they're going to go back and say, well, maybe we need to canonize him because the people are going to freak out. Because that's what happened with St. John of Shanghai and San Francisco. Nobody had glorified him except the Rokor. And people, in fact, were trying to fight against the fact that the Rokor had a saint. But his icons kept spreading in World Orthodox churches. There was no way to stop it. So I would say that it's, unless that happens, where they become too afraid to not glorify his name, then they'll keep trying to put a lid on him. That's my thinking. Okay, let me see here. What's some of your tips for confession? Oh boy. The best tip I have for confession, if you want my honest opinion, is to look for a preparation for confessions list, and use it before confession. Read it, go through it with care. You could, if you want, you can write some stuff down in pencil, ask your priest to destroy it. Just go through the things that you want to remember. Take your time with it. You'd be surprised at how many offenses towards God people can rack up in a month or a week. It's quite impressive. So I don't usually have 5-minute confessions because I screw up a lot, and I've been Orthodox 20 years. One thing you don't want to do is delude yourself into thinking that your confessions are going to they can get better if you progress in holiness, but most people will think they progressed in holiness before they got better. And I don't recommend doing that. Read it with care. And when you go to your priest, have that kind of mental preparation for it. Yeah, I heard a story. Stephanie acknowledges, yep, on the West Right calendar for November 21st. Does it actually have him on let me just see here. Just real quick. Oh yeah, it does have commemoration of St. Philaret of New York. So yeah, he is on the calendar. on our Western Rite calendar on the correct date. Black Wars of Acolyte for $5. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. Ask, do old calendars consider the new calendars departing in 1924 with the calendar change, or 1965 with the lifting of the anathemas against the papists? It's I would say that 1965 began what we would call second wave true orthodoxy. The first wave was in 1924. Those people were directly persecuted by the new calendarist hierarchies, many to the point of imprisonment and death. I don't think I just can't see a priest getting dragged out of liturgy and being beaten, shaved, and thrown in jail, thinking, you know what? They still have grace. I just can't see it. So now that may not have been apparent to, your regular pew-going parishioner in America who thinks everything is fine in the Greek Archdiocese until suddenly they're watching on their black and white televisions that the Pope and the Patriarch are praying together in Rome. They may think that's the moment. So I would say that these were kind of openings of awareness to greater and greater swaths of the public. But I would say that they would say that the change started in 1924, and you can, in fact, find the change in, for lack of a better word, personality to something more evil and disgraceful. But it was not as obvious to people outside of Greece, outside of Romania, outside of, even with the Living Church, outside of Russia. So that would be my answer. I would say that to be consistent, you would have to mark the change as with the rise of the Living Church in Russia, with the rise of the new calendarists in Greece and other countries. Because and this is unfortunately, I guess, how people are being catechized about history. What we're being told is that what happened with the change of the calendar was just, some pious dispute, but science went out, and all of that's a lie. Like all of it, they were just straight up murdering people at times, and and this is who they're claiming their lineage from. It's like, and you feel kind of it becomes weird because it feels like you're like an opposite world. It's like I've often described that like a person going from true orthodoxy and knowledgeably to world orthodoxy, or vice versa, they feel like they're in another dimension. Like in our world, the different factions of the true Orthodox Church of Greece, however right or wrong each one may be, are still part of the Church of Greece. And we consider the new calendarists to be basically violent crypto-papist, ecumenist weirdos. And so, on the other hand, most people in world Orthodoxy, that's all they know as the Greek Church. So we just have such differing perspectives that it can be difficult to reconcile it. So I would say that there was a change in awareness in 1924, obviously, when it started. In 1965, it became bigger and more obvious. In 1983, with the anathema against ecumenism, it became even more obvious. And ultimately, with the rise of the internet, we began to see, once again, another shooting growth. And then we entered into the age of Web 2 and 3.0, when we're dealing with multimedia. And so we're still kind of in that kind of struggle, where basically at this point, most of what the new calendarists and what their allies focus on is on branding and marketing. And that's a dark way of looking at it, but as someone from a sales background, that's really what it comes down to. There was somebody who tried to, he pointed out altar girls in Jerusalem. Well, I was horrified. This is obviously a recent development. And he smugly responded with all four ancient patriarchates have altar girls in the altar now. And so I responded back, well, maybe they should all be reduced to suffragan status, because that has happened historically with all of them. So, a future where Constantinople is irrelevant is not out of my range of vision, because I know history. So that's kind of where I go with it. So I would say that the answer to your question is, yeah, it really started in 1924, but a lot of people had no idea what was going on until 1965 and later on. I hope that helps. But in any case, again, thank you for the support for the channel. Really appreciate it. And if you want your super chat live, you can become a member, or you can donate to. You can donate a super chat, and they help the channel. All of them do. So let me see here. What else have we got here? And so I'm looking here for questions. I do want to check one thing. I really do want to mention also, just if you could say a prayer for the fathers of the Abbey of the Holy Name, Bishop Enoch, Ladika John. There is currently wildfires in their area of New Jersey, in the area of West Milford and others. Over 2,000 acres have been destroyed. I got that message from Vladika John about 2 hours ago. I have not heard from them since. So if you could offer up a prayer for them, I'm sure it'd be much appreciated. I have been following it via satellite, and it doesn't look like there's anything that's closer than 25 miles. And it looks like some of those have been contained. But please say a prayer regardless. I mean, always these things can be problematic, and God willing, He protects his servants. So that's what I've got here. Then let me see here. Yeah, Ethan mentions the story of a World Orthodox iconographer who got sworn in a parishioner for writing an icon of St. John. Yeah, it still happens. It still happens. And the EP still refers to St. John as a saint, but schismatic. So it's all nonsense. But we are glad to debunk the nonsense. And so, of course, if anyone's got video requests or any questions or comments, or I'm really hurting someone's feelings and they want to lash out at me, please do. Atomic Lead, St. Florian, pray for us indeed. There's so many saints, as I mentioned earlier. Today is also St. Demetrius' day, so happy years to Metropolitan Demetrius. St. Job of Pachayev was one of the most important patron saints of the Russian Church abroad, so we remember him too. So just say a prayer. Say say your commemorations, say your prayers. It's Sunday, so hopefully you were doing Typica or you were in church. That's the basic rule that I have here. So in any case, other than that, let's see here. I do thank you. And some people have, there were people who asked about my situation with transportation. There was an issue with car. I will say, through one of the most generous supporters of the channel, that is largely being resolved. And I'm bringing this up for a specific reason. There's one or two repairs to do, but it's quite the upgrade of a vehicle, and glory to God and thank God for that. But this allows me, this is kind of a plan that I have, God willing, assuming everything goes okay, I'm going to try to take a drive down towards Florida. So if people need assistance with being received, I mean, up and down the East Coast, if you can't find any other options, I'll help you. But that's all I've got to throw out there. Let me think here. Yes, ma'am. Father Antonio says, may God bless their generosity. Glory to God. We are grateful for everybody who assists. We would not be able to do this without you. And it's bearing fruit. The good thing is it's bearing fruit. We are actually seeing a lot more people, not just more people being received into true Orthodoxy, but that is happening. But we are also seeing a lot more people hearing about it. And that doesn't just come from your, financial support, although that is a huge factor, but it comes from spiritual support. It comes from prayer. It comes from even just communicating with us online, because that, when you're in this chat, you're actually, believe it or not, the algorithm notices. So it helps all boats. People associated with myself, with True Orthodoxy, they get more noticed as well. And we become more visible. And it scares the daylights out of the professional propagandists over at like the World Orthodox Fighting from Within Corporation, etc. Let's see. Other notes. Archbishop Peter of the Rocor MP has passed on. I believe that was Friday. So he died, I guess, on the vigil of St. Philaret, or well, the uncovering of the relics of St. Philaret. Weird. But in any case, he's really one of the last, if not the last, pre-Union Rocor bishops. And most of the new guys, they're just MP flunkies. Outside of, and Mark of Berlin was kind of the chief architect, so I don't even count him. But yeah, that's it's really pretty much just MP people at this point. But I don't think that Rocor, as a corporate body, will really have any reason to exist outside of, true orthodoxy. Probably within less than a generation. And that's that's just because that's how those things go. Once they've sacrificed their integrity, everything else disappears after. Let me see here. Anonymous Man 115 says, I just listened to St. Ignatius's epistles, and wow, they are edifying. They absolutely are. I highly recommend the Apostolic Fathers. There are very number of editions. They're really a good starter text, especially when you're new in the faith. I highly recommend them. If you're looking for good, solid spiritual writing, you will always find that in the Church Fathers. From there, I would say, once you've done the Apostolic Fathers, you want to consider doing biblical commentaries from Saint Augustine, Saint Chrysostom, studying the councils, and you'll have a well-rounded formation to deal with stuff. Because one thing that we want to always avoid, and it's something that I stress very heavily, is that we're supposed to be a rational flock. And what that means is that we are not supposed to create any illusion of papism, for lack of a better word, because that's kind of what we do. Well, not us, but kind of what they do in World Orthodoxy with their patriarchates. And so you want to avoid that and get right to the core of the nature of the church. And yes, St. Ignatius's epistles are incredibly useful for that. To understand that the bishop is the icon of Christ in the church, and that the offices of the church are centralized around the episcopate. And there's nuance to it. You'll get some people who will try to claim that St. Jerome didn't believe that, which is false. You just have to actually go into his full text and you realize what he's saying. But it's definitely worthwhile. Once again, just to remind everyone, this is a live Q&A session where you can get your questions answered live, as well as member-requested video reviews. So, as always, if you want to jump on stream to ask a question or make a comment, just click the link on the top of the chat. And as always, if you want to come on live, we're here for you. We want to hear your opinion. We want to hear your questions. We want to hear your challenges. And God willing, things will be good. So let's take a look here. Trying to think if anyone gave any questions that I was not aware of. I'm looking. I'm not seeing too much, if I'm being honest. It has been, it's been a crazy week. If you're in the U.S. especially, you know about the election. That was a crazy week. Let me see here. Okay, I got asked in Twitter, what's your opinion on this? And it's leading a report that says Kamala Harris is reportedly now asking for donations to fund recounts. Considering the Harris campaign got $1 billion in corporate donations, I'm sure she knows who to ask to get that fixed. So that's my take, Christian of the Catacombs. And hopefully that helps. Let me see if there's any questions that might be in Gab. I don't see any there. So finally, let's see. Supposedly, Facebook supposed to tell me when the Streamyard supposed to tell me when Facebook has a question. Okay. No, I don't see anything there. All right, so Facebook is quiet. So I am looking for questions. We're looking for questions. We're looking for challenges. And so, this is I'm gonna be sitting here a while. We are in the 47th minute of the first hour, 48th minute. And I plan, since I'm gonna be honest, I'm very grateful for all the help that I've received. So I might make this stream a little longer, folks. Because it seems that every time I'm about to end a stream, people have questions or people came in very late. So I'm gonna give it a go. I'm gonna stay a little longer on this. We'll, at the very least, I think it's let me think here. I mean, I think it's fair to at least go to 11 o'clock Eastern. So that's an hour and 27 minutes more. So I mean, go a little over the 2 hour mark. So if you know anyone you want to ask, or someone smack talk True Orthodox, or someone made some comments that you think need to be addressed, I'm game for it. I will do it. I have noticed that a lot of people who want to really kind of challenge the whole True Orthodox thing lately have gone quiet. Don't know why. Maybe they're just happy about Trump. I don't know. I just have no idea, because everyone's happy about that. No, I'm just kidding. I know there's at least one person who's going to be like, Trump is monster. And anyway, I'm not even getting into that. But yeah, completely open here for any potential challenges. As I mentioned, I'm here for another. I guess I'm here for another. Let me see here. Father Boniface asks, Harris wants a recount. My question is, how many dead people voted for her? I don't know. They're saying that there's 15 million votes missing. How strange. But whatever. This is all silly season. This is where things get ridiculous. So, yep. My Twitter officially kicked out my broadcast, so I'll have to be figuring that out. Figure that out by next week. Let's see here. Let me see here. And I am looking to see what is going on otherwise. And David Daniel asks, how's your book coming along? I will say this was a week I was expecting to be working for a very long time on the book. Unfortunately, this week also turned into madness with the election, with my house, with my car, because my car officially died. I got help on that. I had family members who had to relocate immediately. I helped with what I could with that. And I'll be honest, I have spent the better part of the past 3 to 4 days spending 7 to 12 hours outside doing different things. I will say my progress for the book this week has been terrible. I will say, however, that it is pretty well structured. Okay, let me see here. Someone on the Orthodox Tradition channel, Sojourning One asked, someone on the Orthodox Tradition channel claims that the GOCK bishop in Indonesia prays with Protestants and Muslims. What I think he was referring to is that the bishop in question gives public talks, and at the beginning, when I saw, he said, let us pray and let everyone in prayer. My former World Orthodox priest would have a pastor's breakfast with Protestants and once led local politicians in prayer. To me, it seems that person was blowing things out of proportion. Thoughts? It always comes back to the basic rule. If you are leading the prayer, they're praying with you. If you are not leading the prayer, you're not supposed to participate. With the case of the GOCK in Indonesia, I'm going to be honest. I really believe that's sour grapes. The GOC in Indonesia is recognized as a legal body and legally as the Orthodox Church in Indonesia, something that drives people in the Moscow Patriarchate crazy. And so they attempt to slander the guy unless there is real proof of an ecumenical prayer meeting as opposed to some sort of government event where he leads a prayer. I would say ignore it. And so, because frankly, if you're leading the prayer, it's different. Let me see here. It sounds harsh, but that's a basic reality of even when you're dealing with relatives on Thanksgiving. Something else we need to talk about. A couple of weeks ago, someone asked on the channel, how do you guys deal with the fast on Thanksgiving? It was a new calendarist, so that is a real common question for them because their Thanksgiving is always interrupted by the nativity fast on the new calendar. Unfortunately, because myself and the other person on, I don't want to drag him down. It was truly my fault since I wasn't paying attention. For true Orthodox, for people on the traditional calendar, it is very common. I will say 80 to 90% of the time you are true Orthodox till you die, Thanksgiving is okay because it is before the nativity fast. This year, that's not true. Unfortunately, the nativity fast begins on Thanksgiving Day, which means technically you can't do Thanksgiving till next year, where we won't see that problem pop up again until 2030. But yeah, it happened. I think I had one Thanksgiving where it was not allowed my entire Orthodox life, going on 25 years. There may have been one. If there was, I didn't notice, or maybe I was doing stuff. I don't know. But it doesn't happen often at all. It's rare. But it is, unfortunately, it did happen. Father Antonio says exactly the correct thing on this. Celebrate it early if it's a big deal. And that is probably what we're going to do with Thanks Tuesday, where we will celebrate with a turkey. I'm so sorry, Atomic League. I know I sold you on the Thanksgiving, and it's normally what happens, except this year. I didn't know either. Let me see here. Yeah, now Bishop. Okay, we got a comment from Bishop Enoch. He's alive. That's good. So the fires have not hit. And he says, just celebrate Thanksgiving on the Sunday before Nativity Fast. Yeah, you can do that. Let me see here. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say this. I would say cook a big dinner in honor of Thanksgiving and just say, because you're not going to be there and see who comes. Invite friends and family. That would be the way I would do it. It does, but again, this won't happen next year or the year after or the year after or the year after or the year after. So, let me see here. Let me see here. I'm getting no comments now. So John says, how to deal with Christmas celebrations with non-Orthodox family during Nativity Fast. Honestly, I get this question every year, and I really don't understand it. Like, how many parties do you guys have? Like, is this like a thing where you're just like, there's a Christmas party with Aunt Mel, and a Christmas party with Uncle Ned the week after, and a Christmas party with my brother? So Bishop Enoch suggests the Sunday before Nativity Fast or St. Martin of Tours. Remember, the Feast of St. Martin of Tours, which is the Sunday before Nativity Fast, was the medieval Thanksgiving. Very handy. Let me see here. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't understand how people are having so many Christmas celebrations before Christmas. Like, to me, the feast is the Christmas celebration. It is the Nativity celebration. The other things are just parties. I mean, or dinners. Just say you went vegan, and then when it comes to, like around springtime and they have a barbecue, just say you're not one anymore. Like, it's not that hard. It's just, if you want to make it a big deal, it will become a big deal. But if you don't make it a big deal, you'll find there's a lot of options, including skipping the ones you don't like. Jeff Dodger says, might go to hell if you eat turkey, said no one. It's about respecting the fast. And on the traditional Orthodox calendar, this almost never happens. It's just happening this year. So sorry. I'm sorry for people that I misled, because I too was misled. I too was waiting for turkey on the last Thursday of November. But I'll have it on Tuesday. Bishoy Mara says, peace of Christ, Father, sending love from the Coptic Church. Well, with all love, except Chalcedon. I'm sorry. I got to be honest. I'm not going to just be like, you got to accept Chalcedon. It's the councils of the church. That is the one thing that keeps us separated, because you have so much rich history. Accepting Chalcedon really shouldn't be that hard, I think, if you look at the issues. Now, honestly, we have actually come close to having a discussion on this channel with priests, but of the Copts, but it ended up falling apart. So let me see here. Facebook user says, too much taken out of context anymore. Hopefully that's all that happened. And then Bishoy Mara says, we will do soon. Do not worry. In 5 years, we will have communion. Maybe you're new to the channel. I do realize that there is unofficial communion within, like, the Patriarchate of Antioch, Alexandria, etc., between a number of things. So, yeah, that will happen with some people who call themselves Orthodox, but we wouldn't call them Orthodox either. Black Ortho Acolyte supporting the channel. Thank you so much. Thoughts on Father John Romanides? For the let me see here. This week, somebody asked me, what are your thoughts on Father John Romanides? I have fewer and fewer thoughts on Father John Romanides. I think a lot has been said about Father John Romanides. Vladimir Moss wrote a book called Against Romanides. I highly recommend that book. I recommend reading Father Seraphim Rose's The Place of Blessed Augustine in the Orthodox Church. I recommend people reading the medieval histories of the church and the Franks that are available in translation in the 9th and 10th centuries, the 8th century. I would highly recommend reading the Latin histories. Almost everything I can think of related to Father John Romanides' teachings ends up being something that ends up being a lie or something weird. Bishop Enoch points out, as traditional Western Orthodoxy, remember the spinal fluid. I mean, that's a real thing in his writings. The UFOs. I mean, I don't know how to spell it any more clearly. And I know the reason Father Peter Hears, for example, will not say anything critical of Father John Romanides, because he has referred to him previously as his teacher. So even if he knows he did something wrong, he's not going to throw his teacher under the bus. But he should be thrown under the bus. Absolutely. He's a complete heretic. He's completely crazy. So that's all I got to say. Tom McLean says, fun question, BOA. Bishoy Maurer said, no. In February, the church will send bishops to reach the arguments to have communion again soon. Pray for us, please. I mean, of course, I'll pray for you. I'll pray for your safety, your salvation. And I'll also pray collectively that you guys, accept the council, the ancient councils. And I pray for your safety. I know it's not easy, especially if you're in Egypt, for example, dealing with a Muslim majority. God willing, as more and more people in Islamic countries are losing their faith in Islam, there will be more space for openness to Christ, and it won't be so bad. I do pray for that. And Islam is falling apart, so maybe life will be better for us in 10 years, collectively. Gene, well. Not sure what you're talking about. My spinal fluid is feeling weak, guys. Help me. So Journey one says, can you explain the spinal fluid thing? Yeah, there was an essay or two written by Father John Romanides where he kind of is talking about the illumination of the heart, but then begins talking about it like a physical thing. And he starts explaining the enlightenment of the heart is because of the spinal fluid coming from the brain to the heart and stuff. So, I mean, there's not that he starts claiming this is a teaching of the fathers, which it's not. It's not. It's just crazy. It's wacky beyond that. Let me see here. BOA says, well, it's a legit question. I'm curious to see if the new calendar, old calendar view is different, his teachings differently. Well, you have to realize, I would say that among true Orthodox, remember that you have to remember this. It's about history. When Father John Romanides was popular, and that was in the 80s, the 70s and 80s, he was involved with the ecumenical movement, then became extremely critical towards the end of his life because they weren't taking his theories seriously. But a lot of Greek people loved the guy because of the fact that he presented an alternative version of history that sounded so good, because if you are reading it like I did when I was first young and I was totally excited by it, I thought it was the best thing on earth. It sounds like the Orthodox were like the victims of the biggest international sham, the biggest international cover-up of all history, that they were the real Romans and that the Franks, over centuries going all the way, Napoleon was part of the Roman Revolution against the Frankish establishment. I mean, it's a whole different reading of history. It's not an accurate reading of history. It's not a true reading of history, but it sounds good. And that's what got people in the 70s and 80s. And they were like, yeah, we're Romans. And you still see people do that. And there's some validity to that. They were considered Romioi, before the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. That said, there was no secret conspiracy to hide them or to turn them into something they were not or anything like that. That's all garbage. It's all part of Father Romanides' nonsense, and it is nonsense and deserves to be called out as nonsense. And the reason why, I'm going to be honest with you, the reason why a lot of people took him seriously was because they hadn't studied the history. And he presented so much obscure history that if you weren't familiar with it, and we've done shows on this, you would just assume he was telling the truth. A perfect example is one of his central things that he actually puts in multiple essays, because he often repeats himself, about Liutprand, referring to the Romans as a despicable people and stuff, and horrible, and we despise them. And he says this was the Frankish position. What he doesn't tell you, in a nutshell, and I will have to find the episode where we go through it, Bishop Enoch actually read the whole historical piece. They literally left these guys waiting for like 10 days or something in the courts of Constantinople with like no help, no food, and just mocking them for a while. So where they were surviving on their provisions. Finally, they're like, okay, now you can get an audience, because they thought this was entertaining in the Byzantine court. And they're like, so what do you think of Romans now? That was the context of Liutprand saying what he did. He was mad, really mad, at how badly he was treated. Was that mentioned by Romanides at all? No. Just Liutprand just came out and just wanted to be a spicy racist. But in any case, let's see here. Traditional Western Orthodoxy, Bishop Enoch says there are people in Mount Athos and in Greece that want Father John Romanides canonized because Father Paisios of Athos said Father John Romanides was a living saint. Oh boy. Let me see here. So Journey One says people kept raving about patristic theology, so I wanted to pick up a copy, see what it was about. I felt this chapter on how the fathers responded to heresy to not really be about the title of the chapter. I'm sure that's true in too many ways. Let's see here. So yeah, this creates all kinds of problems. Bishop Aymar, I know, Father, we'll try our best to reach the communion again. Yeah, you're talking about a 1,600-year gulf. It's not easy, but again, I pray for your safety and goodwill. Hopefully, it leads to something positive in terms of accepting the universal church's position. James says Romanides is correct about Frankish innovations. He's not. He's not on a lot of it. But his theological ideas take way too much of an anti-West stance and go against St. Augustine and the church historically. Trust me, a lot of the things he calls Frankish innovations are not actually Frankish innovations. And he says, Bishop Enoch said, Father Romanides also says that the Old Testament is a mishmash of Babylonian legends, Hebrew folklore, and some authentic material. Remember the old website, romanity.org. Unfortunately, yeah, that's pretty bad. That he basically doesn't have too much of a difference from like the people like Myth Vision or the bald guy who says Jesus isn't real. Let me see. No offense to bald guys. I'm just saying he's a very famous bald guy, and his name isn't popping up. Gene was reviewing him yesterday. That's why I brought him up. Father Romanides also thought the fathers were empiricist positivists and that the Marxists were closest to the fathers in methodology and that some sort of reconciliation was possible. I missed that one, but that doesn't surprise me. James says, wow, that's even worse than Origen saying that everything is allegorical that he doesn't want to answer. Yep. Bishop Enoch says his actual textbooks that are published with notes don't sound as crazy since they come from when he had to defend his thesis in the 60s against hostile Greek academic theologians like Panagiotis Tremblos, who constantly criticized him. Yes, Tremblos had a lot to say about him. Bishop Maurer says, yes, Orthodox suffered a lot from Islam, but God's love and blessing guards us, and we are still here and never extinct. Well, glory to God for everyone who can survive in that environment, and God willing, as we see Rome deconstruct itself, we will see the continued collapse of Islam on its own false teachings. Atomic Lead says, goat with leek and garlic sounded good, though. I might not waiting out in the rain if the emperor gives me that afterward. I mean, Bishop Enoch says, Lead Prime Bishop of Cremona still does not concelebrate with however, still celebrated with the Patriarch of Constantinople that Pentecost. He just didn't like the emperor and thought they had been mistreated. And James says, thanks for the correction on the Frankish element. Not a problem. If you haven't read Against Romanides yet, I highly recommend it. It's the most exhaustive coverage of it, but not by far the complete one. That will, it is going to take a lot of people. It's going to take a lot of people acting like Panagiotis Tremblos to finally dig up all the mess of a hypothesis that Romanides held and how much damage it caused. Leoprand also complained that everything was drenched in olive oil. I think I don't think that's a fair complaint. I mean, there's nothing wrong with olive oil. I mean, that's just, it's just, Anyway, okay, so I think BOA, that was a complete answer on Father Romanides, complete with contributions from Bishop Enoch, Gene, Atomic Lead, and our own local laugh track. All right, so just to remind everybody, this is the live Q&A session where you can get your questions answered live as well as member-requested video reviews. So let's get started. As always, if you want to jump on stream to ask a question or make a comment, just click the link at the top of the chat. Again, I'll be taking super chats from the YouTube chat, and if you want your question or comment without super chatting, put it up on the UfrosidosCafe.com and go to the chat window, and you will see it right there on the screen. Atomic Lead said, sounds good to me. Yeah. Who could be against olive oil? I mean, you got to be a real big butter fan to not like olive oil. I just don't understand it. But I mean, I get it. Maybe it's just a cultural thing, but I mean, it even smells good. Unless if it was good, olive oil. But anyway, I imagine it must be at the Byzantine court. Let me see here. Okay, so we don't see any new questions. I'm going to head to X, start looking for people to fight. Nope, nothing there. Well, people are just not in a fighting mood today. It's as though something happened this week that just brought people joy. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, let's see. Anything going on here? Anyone in the chat have any questions? Any thoughts? Any things you want to share in terms of what's going on? I mean, that's what this is, an open Q&A session. So, and if you want to jump on the chat and just say, well, Father, you're terrible at this, you can do that. You can literally just click on the chat in the top and just tell me I suck. I mean, use better language, But anyway, John asks, Father, what do you think about some of these alleged end times prophecies floating online? For example, that there will be a war between Russia and Turkey, with Russia retaking Constantinople. I think a lot of those are new prophecies from new elders, and I don't trust a lot of them. And some of them might even be like misapplied. Like there are cases, like I know that with for example, I saw the case of recently I saw the prophecy of Saint Nilus, the Mer streamer, coming back up, and that was also that has been reviewed and criticized to no end. But one thing I did learn is that there are different versions of it, and one of them they even added. One of them I even showed that it was an edition by Elder Paisios. So I mean, I don't know how much I trust. I don't trust modern prophecies. The fathers were very clear on how the end times were going to occur. I think a lot of desperate people, fearing an apocalyptic setting, wanted to believe that this was the end. And I'm hoping to God, because they could still be right, but I'm hoping to God they're not. Because if they're not right, then we still have a chance to proclaim the gospel to people. Yeah, and John says he's okay. Bishop Ito says Leopold also complained he got terrible diarrhea from the food and thought the Byzantines had done it on purpose. I get that. He was already mad, but I mean, what are you going to do? I'm sorry to say this. Ultimately, the point is that Father John Romanini is claiming Liutprand did this out of pure hatred for the Roman people is insane. It's false, and all you have to do is read that where that came from, and that's available in English. John says these prophecies seem to be mostly propagated by World Orthodox, pushing the references from within until a future ecumenical council. Yeah, and I'm convinced that to some degree, that's part of what motivates them. What I mean by that is, if you have no canonical ground to stand on in fighting from within, if you're supposed to go to a different bishop, but you can't because you convince yourself that the episcopate is like an Eastern papacy, etc., but everything's falling apart, the only thing you can become is apocalyptic. And I know this because when I was even 20 years ago in true Orthodoxy, when things were splitting and everyone was fighting a lot more, the apocalyptic bug just shows up right then. And people are like, maybe this is the end. It can't get any worse. That was wrong. It can't get worse. And then they think like maybe like there's no way for this to be solved unless God intervenes. That's also true, but he doesn't always intervene in the way we think. So I mean, I'm not sure what I would say there. Bishoy Mars, Father, you can say on Discord, Muhammad is false. You will find a lot. I debate almost daily. That's where we disagree there, Bishoy. I don't use Discord, except in chats occasionally. I do not go into Discord rooms. I am not a Discorder. I make fun of people on Discord all the time, except people who chat with me. I don't make fun of them. They're cool people because they know that I don't like Discord. Okay. The whole account, let me see. Bishop Enoch says the whole account, in fact, by Liutprand reads like someone who had a terrible working vacation, which he did, and thought someone needed to pay. Okay. Black Sheep, bless Father. May God bless you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Does the Holy Spirit only enter us after baptism? Well, after the seal of the Holy Spirit through chrismation, I would say I don't know that he doesn't enter after baptism. I think he enters that way too. But yeah, I mean, if you're what you're looking for me, it depends on what you mean by enter us. The Holy Spirit will not indwell in just random people. He can provide grace to people. He can help them. Basically, we believe as Orthodox Christians that with baptism and chrismation, the Holy Spirit indwells in us and indwells in us through the mysteries. What you're asking me is, can that occur without someone being Orthodox? And the answer would be no. And then Bishop Enoch says, when we read the so-called Apocalypse of Methodius, it describes basically perfectly the entire biblical patristic consensus on the end times. I agree. I've seen that, and it's very good. So much so that so one wonders if this pseudo-Methodius, or was it really Saint Methodius around 300? And like we've seen with pseudo-Dionysius and other pseudos, maybe it is Saint Methodius. Bishoy, glad you laughed there, okay. Bishop Enoch says, before we read it on the channel, I'd never read it in depth, and after I remember Father Joseph, we came away reading the text thinking whoever wrote this knew the entire consensus patrum. Exactly. Or they were living within it. And he was not a pseudo writer. He was literally there having these discussions with other fathers who we read on the subject. So, again, it comes back down to what kind of scholarship are we allowing to work with? And so we have to deal with scholarship that's respectful to the text. And there's shamefully too little of that. So yeah, that's what I've got to say there. Let me see here if anyone's popped up for. Let me see if anyone is here. It's funny because we get debate challenges and then they just vanish, which is too bad. But we do have a debate coming, God willing, on November 26th, which is just 16 days away. And I'll just put that on the screen in case you want to check it out. Give me just a moment. So, let's see here. And so I would say this. Mark your calendars. I am not a fan of the vestment picture, but let me just quickly do this here. Okay. And so on the channel The Gospel Truth, which I believe is a Protestant channel, I will be having a debate with William Albrecht of the Roman Catholic Church on the question of papal supremacy. Been looking forward to this for a while. Again, that's in 16 days, so we will be doing that soon, and I'm hoping that goes well. Glory to God for that. And let's get back here, and let's put back our cafe on the screen. And so let me see here. Bishop Enoch points out in the 19th and 20th century, problems start with various writers begin to say the Byzantine emperor comes back and reigns for 1,000 years. Yes, the legend of the Marble King, everybody. As I love saying that. It just sounds like, seriously, people? I mean, like, the Marble King is something that is not in the true Orthodox conscience at all. But conscious at all. I don't think there is a single true Orthodox Greek. Maybe there is. Maybe there's one or two. I don't know. But I think most people would think the Marble King is kind of amusing more than anything else. Benedicite.
Benedicite.
How's it going? Bishop Enoch from the Traditional Western Orthodoxy channel and often a contributor here. Glad to have you. David Daniel asks, any thoughts on the You okay? Hello? Hello?
Yes, I'm sorry, I just dropped my microphone.
Oh, yeah, it sounded like you fell over or something. Okay. David Daniel asks, any thoughts on Pamphilus of Caesarea and his writings on Origen? I'm not familiar with them. I don't know if you are.
He was a writer in the late 200s. I think he he died in the Diocletian persecution, I believe.
Okay, so he was a martyr. Okay.
Yes, I think he in fact, let me look it up. He is in fact a saint in the church.
Okay.
As I recall, they'd have to mention in particular. I think I don't know. I haven't read enough about it. He wrote some sort of text that was mediated through Eusebius of Caesarea about Origen. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sort of skeptical with some of the things Eusebius of Caesarea wrote, simply because he was he was condemned by the church as an Arian, and I don't know enough about it to say whether it's authentic or not. So
yeah, I mean, the church recognizes him as a saint. We recognize him as a saint.
Yeah, but the point is that what did he write in defense of Origen? Was he wrong? Was he accurate? Because remember, what was happening was a lot of people were saying Origen didn't write this stuff, and these were interpolations. And in the end, the material showed that Origen did write this stuff.
Yeah.
So you could have at the time, people weren't exactly sure how Origen died. I mean, remember, Origen died under he did not quite die in the peace of the church, as people claim. He was actually excommunicated by the Church of Alexandria and by some other churches. Some, I think the church in Arabia and in Palestine were like, oh, he can be in communion with us. So it was sort of a disputed question because of these various points. Okay. So until the church decides, various views were sort of allowed, but by the time you get to the Fifth Ecumenical Council, there was already massive consensus on the question. So,
okay. Adrian Wyatt says these pseudos were no pseudo intellectuals, but rather the real deal. Yes. James says this guy joined VC just to leap down a flight of stairs. I do know that Bishop Enoch has been on an exercise regimen that's been very successful for him. I don't think that was part of it, though. I think that was just a microphone. BOA says, yes, very thorough. Thank you. We'll check out the book eventually. Awesome. David Daniels says, thank you. And so, how are you doing, Vladika?
I'm doing all right. I have these 2 volumes I've been reading recently while I'm walking around and things like that. And they're the exegetical epistles of St. Jerome in 2 volumes that have not been most of them haven't been translated into recently.
Okay.
In the late 19th century, in the Nicene and post-Nicene Fathers of the Church series, they translated most of the letters of St. Jerome, but there were a lot of his exegetical epistles, which are 20 pages, 30 pages, they never translated. So I've been reading through them and such. Okay. And the guy who translated it, sort of is strange because he's like a lot of modern scholars, they sort of are not quite sympathetic to St. Jerome. They have mixed views of him and such. And
I think they just don't like people who had more spine than they do.
Well, yes, I think St. Jerome simply their view is well, Jerome in the 380s was favorable to Origen, but then he turned against him in the 390s. It's almost as if maybe they're not considering the fact that people began to turn against certain figures as they read more and more of them. All right.
Yeah.
And their views began to be well, maybe this was acceptable. Well, guess what? You're reading all these other texts. Well, no, it's not acceptable.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's what I've been reading recently. So not much else has been happening.
All right. And James says, thanks for answering the part about Origen. No problem.
Because remember, even in St. Vincent of Lorenzo's Commonatory, there's a big section about both Origen as for the East and Tertullian for the West. And St. Vincent's view is that that both of them were great temptations for the church in the East and the church in the West. And what they could have done, was, and they both Tertullian caused considerably less damage since he essentially joined the Montanists formally and got kicked out of the church. All right. Whereas in the case of Origen, he tried to just formally stay within the church, which when a heretic does that, like Pelagius or Julian of Eclanum, that's a lot more problematic. All right.
Yeah.
Because they make you have to prove everything. Okay.
You have to prove they're heretics.
Yeah. And then you go through all this, this rigmarole of trials and what have you. Whereas Tertullian sort of had the decency of I'm just I'm going to found my own group or something like that. I mean, right. I'm not as great, but it was easier for the church to deal with it. And St. Vincent of Lorenz sort of replies, because people in the commonatory, people were sort of saying, well, Origin didn't write these things; these were interpolations. And St. Vincent's like, well, maybe they were, but maybe they aren't. All right. And whatever the case is, these simply can't be accepted. And St. Vincent doesn't seem to, seems like, well, maybe they were interpolations, because there were figures like Rufinus of Aquileia also claiming that. But that forced Saint Jerome to actually do a full translation of on the Principles by Origen, where he basically you see all the material like preexistence of the souls and things like that.
Yeah.
Right. And when that happened, it sort of became impossible, because St. Jerome did that for the reason to say, look, this is what he's actually teaching. Because people were taking Origen's Greek writings and putting them into Latin and saying, oh, well, of course, these are interpolations, but they had no evidence. I mean, I can talk about interpolations in manuscripts because I'm comparing ancient texts. But if all your texts of Origen that are ancient have him teaching stuff that's heretical,
how do you prove that they're interpolated?
Exactly. That's it. Sort of becomes, well, it's impossible. He could have he was just a great teacher, therefore he couldn't have taught these things. Whereas Origen dies again under a cloud of controversy, even at his death.
So. Okay. First off, I will read Adrian's comment in a moment, but again, thank you, Black Ortho Acolyte, for the $5 super chat with the question: among the old calendar churches, are there differing positions on grace among the new calendarists? If so, what are they? Well, I've got some great news for you. This question was a lot worse to answer in 2001 than in 2024. The answer to the question universally is the standard normal Orthodox answer on schism for 95% of the true Orthodox world, whether it's in Greece, Romania, Bulgaria, Russia, etc. And that is schismatics and those who enter into heresy have no grace. That is the standard Orthodox position. And that includes the New Calendarists, and that also includes the New Calendarist position on true Orthodox since the very beginning of their departure into heresy. They actually did hold to at least the ecclesiologically clear position that, frankly, schismatics have no grace. The problem is they were the schismatics. And so the only group that does not hold this position is the kind of semi-synod under Bishop, formerly under Bishop Artemiev before he passed on, when he single-handedly formed a separate Serbian synod that is not the same as the Serbian synod under Bishop Akake, which does hold to the standard position, whereas he holds to the old Cyprianite position. But that's it. Everyone else holds to the same position.
The Cyprianite position always seems to be ultimately like this this stop along the way to me.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And people who adopt it, they can't hold it for more than if 10, 20 years as a group, because it becomes so evident who they're defending as having grace.
Yeah.
If you're getting attacked constantly by people who are just modernists, and from a practical position, is what are we holding water for these people?
Exactly. Yeah.
And it just simply becomes, just nope. So
yeah, good. Adrian Wyatt, so thank you for that again, BOA, for your assistance and for your support of the channel. Really appreciate it. As you mentioned, never use Discord. Yep, I knew that's good stuff. Adrian Wyatt says, part 1, as for the legend of the Marble King, all is possible for God. I am not denying this. I just really think the legend is funny. However, some witnesses claim that Constantine the 11th was last seen disappearing into a melee of fighters. And most of the time you see a king disappearing into a melee of fighters, they die. Just saying.
Well, remember that there was also the tradition or the legend, whatever, about the priest sort of phasing into the walls of Hagia Sophia too, during like the last liturgy. And the king being held underground. That's all. That kind of sounds similar to some of the Arthurian and other sort of early medieval Celtic legends about various kings.
Well, it also doesn't jive with the immediate history. To my knowledge, the Marble King thing really wasn't a thing until the 20th century.
There wasn't some. You mean about him going underground and being?
Yeah.
I don't know. There may have been Greek legends from the 1600s about that or something like that. I don't know. I don't think like he would. Wasn't there some legend about Constantine being preserved underground in
Yeah.
like sleep, and then in the last days he's going to come back. That's
Well, yeah,
basically
but they say that based on, I guess, the statue of him that was found underground, and that he's actually the marble statue.
Well, the stuff about him that he's going to reign for 1,000 years, that sounds crazy. I mean,
I think, well, yeah, a lot of it's crazy, and
so
but again, it was, the Greek church in captivity. I'm sure there were a few people who believed that, but I would say by the time of the true Orthodox, especially by the time of the fall of the Ottoman Empire, a lot of people probably didn't believe in that stuff anymore because the whole world had changed. Atomic Lead says lots of legends foretell some kind of returning king or hero in his nation's greatest need. Absolutely, and that's exactly what I think.
Well, that's the Arthurian legend,
right? Well, it's a legend that repeats throughout history. Yeah.
Yes.
So I agree. It's just that it's not. It's a legend. Then Atomic Lead asks, isn't St. John the Third Vatatsis also supposed to return?
I don't know enough about it. What do
I
you know?
I have no idea. I mean, I don't know.
Can you look it up?
I'm doing that right now.
I've heard stuff about supposedly before the end, Saint Seraphim is going to rise from the dead, and he's going to walk to this
that's so new.
Have you heard about?
I've heard about Sarah literally being lifted out of the earth.
Yes,
like some of this stuff is crazy. Okay,
well, remember, there's also the hidden city that's under the lake too.
Yeah.
There was what was the name of it? There was a Russia. I mean, I had one person who was years ago had like a degree in Slavonic studies or something. It's no one but he told me one time that in Russia, one of the things was one of the problems they always had was someone can just grow a beard and put on a black robe and start preaching, and eventually they're gonna get some people following them. And he'll just say whatever, and that's what it kind of becomes crazier over time. So
I don't see anything about this about John.
Prophecy of the Reposed King.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, no, that's just his relics.
A prophecy states that since the time of you gotta look at the last line. It says a prophecy states that since that time he has been awaiting the liberation of Constantinople.
Whose prophecy?
I don't know.
Let's find out.
Now, when did this emperor die? Is this
like 1241 or something?
Okay, all right. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to find some text written in 1350 by some monk about this. I mean, maybe, but that doesn't mean the church believes it or it's actually an accurate portrayal.
All right, so I'm going to have to use the Internet Archive on this thing. Give me a second. Oh, yeah. 1 second, please. Copy link address. Let's go to archive.org. And this, kids, is why the Internet Archive is so important. Okay, so let's go there. Well, let's see where we can find. Okay.
When you're dealing with like more modern, the best way, if you want to know the end times, just read the early fathers. Their commentaries on the Bible is very clear. Saint Bede, for example, has a very clear 4 or 5 page exposition on his book, The Reckoning of Time, which just gives the basic exposition that there's going to be, because one of the things that has to happen according to our Lord is that this gospel must be preached everywhere. Right, and the fathers talk about the gospel being preached, which is true orthodoxy, is preached everywhere. All right, and there's this mass conversion that happens, and then there's a falling away. All right, which St. Paul talks about. All right, and then the man of sin is revealed, the Antichrist. All right, then the prophets Enoch and Elias come back. A lot of this is, and then of course they're killed after about 3.5 years in the streets of Jerusalem, and then they're with the world watching, they're resurrected and ascended to heaven according to the book of Revelation and such. So,
okay, wait,
yes.
I think I found it. Okay. Apparently, going through this is the thing, and we'll go through the legend of the Marble King again.
Okay,
but this time around, it says a modern holy saint, an ascetic, states that for some time the merciful Holy King has been resurrected and the sword is completed to come out of the sea. Translation: this entire new prophecy is from some new elder, and we're done with that. So yeah, that answers that question because unfortunately, that's pretty depressing. Okay,
So the sword is going to come out of the sea.
Yeah,
almost like the Lady of the Lake throwing the sword out of the lake.
It looks like
it's very Arthurian sounding. I mean, so
it looks like Zelotes is trying to join. I would love to get a Greek perspective on this, but it seems like there's no mic or camera connected. You may want to check that out. Oh, he says, "Hi everyone, those are fake prophecies. We are figuring that out, but definitely we want to hear your take on it. I'm gonna boot you so you can come back in because it's not connected to your mic or camera. So I'm gonna kick you so you can come back in. Let me see here. So that answers that question to Atomic Lead. Adrian Wise says, Part 2, Sultan Mehmed, conqueror of Constantinople, paraded what he claimed was the head of Constantine XI. Another witness states that there are claims that he hanged himself. Atomic Lead says Kitsa, not sure. And so, yes, hopefully Zeletis comes back because I'd love to get his perspective on these prophecies. David Daniels says, I'm not trying to muddy the waters, but when questions in grace in general and a particular church is asked, can what is meant by grace be spelled or clearly defined? I ask because some would say it isn't by God's grace that even the atheists or any creations exist. Right. We're not talking about the grace of creation.
I mean, the grace of the church.
Yeah. We're talking about the grace of the church. And so that, I did not realize you're not trying to muddy the waters, but that is actually, a lot of people will use that to muddy the waters. So, okay, it looks like Zelotes might be trying to come back, so hopefully his connection is successful.
I'm going to go anyway. I got to go to bed, Father, so I'll talk later, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Right,
Benedicite. Okay, so we're waiting to see if Zelotes can join. I asked because some would say, isn't it by God's grace? Yeah, okay, we answered that. And Part 3, though in fact he was a Uniate, and the last service in Hagia Sophia, interrupted by the Turks bursting in, was Uniate. That is absolutely correct. So that's something in the question category of why would God want to preserve the Uniate Emperor? So it's wacky stuff that we're dealing with, but hopefully Zelotes can get in and we can get his perspective. That would be great. But until then, again, this is a live Q&A, so feel free to jump in by using the link at the top of the chat. Anyone can join in, and if they have a question, feel free. For some reason, my mic and camera is okay. Not open. Hold on. All right. So while we're waiting, we'll see, and let's see what we got here. So we should reject the claims that Constantine the 11th renounced the union. To my knowledge, he didn't. We're talking about the same Constantine. Yeah, he didn't reject the union at all. No, he passed on with in favor of it. I should mention also, some of the background on this actually plays into the life of Sophia Paleologos, who would marry Ivan III of Russia. So, no, that would not be historically correct. Let me see here. I would say, rejecting that claim is not a bad idea because it doesn't sound historically tenable. Let me see here. Looking for more questions. Doesn't look like anyone's coming in right now, but we are still going. So a lot of great questions and interesting questions today. I really appreciate that. So even if we end up winding down in a little bit, I think we had a very good stream so far. We covered a lot of ground. We've covered a lot of different things. But we'll see. I'm going to keep it open. I'm going to be a man of my word and keep it open for the next 40 minutes. If somebody wants to call in with a challenge or question, please feel free. That's what the Q&A is here for. Let me see here. Okay. Okay, let me see there. Anonymous Man 115 says, lest anything should befall me, I'm finally going to liturgy on the 24th with my friend Adrian. Please pray for both of us. Glory to God. And I hope it is successful and it is spiritually profitable for you and will help you as we enter into Holy Orthodoxy. Oh, glory to God. All right. Well, thank God. Yeah, we will, so keep praying until you get there. Maybe watch traffic a little more carefully. The devil's never happy when someone publicly announces they're about to become Orthodox. Not that I'm like paranoid of that sort of thing, but we should be watching traffic anyway, is my point. So let me put back the cafe because it disappeared. Screen. And so let's see here. So glory to God for that. And that's what I'm talking about. What we're doing here is we're trying to, our job is to try to get you into the church. And some people are already on their way to very close, etc. And then our job is just to kind of push you. Occasionally say a prayer, but push you further till you do it, so that you're in the body of Christ, in the journey for salvation. So that's that's what I would say on that. It's worth it. It's worth the effort for your soul. So that's what we're doing here. But glad to hear that you're being received into Holy Orthodoxy, and it's a wonderful thing. Let's see here. If we got any other weird and interesting comments on the Facebook or anything. Okay, let me see. All right, so I'm not seeing anything new popping up here, so I'm gonna have to look for my conflict. I'm gonna have to look for some conflict. Let's see if I can find some. Let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna try this. All right. Okay. Oh, this poor guy. I'm gonna share a tab, because I know y'all are interested to see what's going on. I decided to search up. Oh, let me see. Zolotus is back, and there's still no mic or video. What the heck? He vanished again. Okay, hopefully he's trying to fix that. So what I've done is I have gone on to Twitter and I have typed in genuine Orthodox in quotes to see what I find. And so let's see if there's good news, bad news, or what it is. So we begin. I share this tab. No mic and video, sorry. It's okay, Zolotus. I'm guessing it is probably a site-related issue on your browser. You might want to check browser permissions because you might have actually accidentally shut off browser permissions if you're doing it on a phone. It's less common on a computer, but it depends on how you're doing it. You might want to check the browser permissions, and that should work. And God willing, maybe we can see you next week. Or unless you get it fixed in the next few minutes, because I'm planning to stay here we're now in the 46th minute of the second hour, and I'm going to stay here until about 15 minutes into the third. So, about a half hour more, and that should do it. Let's see here. All right, so going to Genuine Orthodox on Twitter to see what I find. Da da da. All right. So we go to the top. Okay. All credit to the Genuine Orthodox Church of America. Oh no. Oh no, poor Miguel. I feel so bad. He's got sucked into the one crazy person. John, persecution of the genuine Orthodox Christians of Greece by the State Church of Greece. I believe these pictures come from the struggle against ecumenism. See, that's where this is like an old calendar priest who was forcibly shaved and thrown into prison. Yeah, so they did it to him too. That's just kind of an awful treatment. Luce's top guy, I assume this is a papal person. I don't think the Latin Mass versus Novus Ordo is worse than having no consistent ecclesiology whatsoever in the Eastern Church. What? There was a consistent seasonal papism for a while, but that's about it. Okay. The only reason genuine Orthodox are considered as schismatics is because they're a minority. That's it. Somehow he came to the right conclusion, but the wrong way. I think he really doesn't understand our ecclesiology at all. All right. Let's see. That is what the Kiev regime did on the genuine Orthodox Church and on Russian literature books. Oh, he thinks the Moscow Patriarch is the genuine Orthodox Church. Doubt it, but I'm not aware of a similar Catholic convergent movement in Lutheranism. Still, much of Lutheran art, hymns, and spirituality are genuine Orthodox contributions to Christendom. So, okay, that's just some Lutheran to Catholic guy. All right, so there's nothing else there. So that was a fun exercise. So let's go back and to the cafe. As always, you can join frozenoscafe.com and you can post on our forums, study and learn about the rich history of true Orthodoxy, as it has basically a forum archive going back over 24 years. It's a really long time, so it's definitely worth checking out. That's frozenoscafe.com. And I will continue to advertise and push that because it is also the best way to reach me. I use Element, but nobody knows what that is except for my family, apparently. I try not to use Discord and will openly tell people I don't use it to their faces. You can try to reach me on Facebook Messenger, but I probably won't friend you because I keep my Facebook friends very, very small and I shrink them constantly and remove more people. So if you've been removed by me on Facebook, please don't be offended. I want fewer people on my Facebook. Wait. Oh, Zelotus is back and he might have. Hello, Bennett. Yes, we can hear you.
Your blessings. So sorry about that. It was a little hard.
No problem. May God bless you, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So
yes.
How are you? Okay. So we were tell us about the prophecies. You're Greek, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm Greek and think that I have been visiting Mount Athos for many years. I have a cousin, he's a monk in Mount Athos since 1988, and I have been in touch with holy men in Mount Athos. All those prophecies and stuff like that, I've heard them many, many times from people outside of Mount Athos. And after, over than 20 years research in those prophecies, that's my personal opinion. If I'm wrong, may God forgive me and everybody else. So I ended up that all those are fake prophecies, mostly like legends, not prophecies, but legends that grew up with the centuries, during the centuries. And as about, let's say for the beginning, we had, for many centuries, they believed that Constantine the 11th was the marbled emperor. Mm-hmm. And later on, they decided that Saint John Vatatzis, the emperor of Nicaea, was the one. This popped up at 1958 in Mount Athos when a bishop of the Ecumenical Patriarchate named Iakovos, I don't remember which area was bishop, he actually moved to Lavras monastery area, and he started spreading out all this fake, legend that somebody, a military guy from Greece, he went to Constantinople, he had a friend there, and turns out he saw him Vatadzis underground of Constantinople and all those things. My research, in a most, let's say, scientific way, I tried to find out the more I could for Saint John Vatadzis. He actually built a monastery in Magnesia, the modern city Manisa of Turkey, the Our Lord Savior's monastery, and he was buried there. 7 years after his repose, they opened the grave. They found him incorrupted, like Saint Philaretus, kind of, and then they put him back again. And this monastery was destroyed by the Turks, and now we have just the remains of this monastery in this area. His body is still there. So all those are fake prophecies. That's what mostly I wanted to say about those pseudo prophecies. As about Constantine the 11th, because right after the fall of Constantinople to the Turks, the Greeks started growing all those prophecies. His body actually was buried in Saint Theodosia's temple. May the 29th is her name day, and the people of Constantinople decorated this church very beautifully. And also the Turks, they named this, they turned it into a mosque, and they named it Gül Cami, which is the rose, stands for rose, the Mosque of Rose, because it was decorated with roses. So the conquered Mehmed II, he actually allowed the church to bury Constantine the 11th at this temple, at the underground crypty. But I think it was at the year 1511 when Turks, they opened the grave and took out his relics and they burned them in order to stop all those the spreading of all those prophecies, fake prophecies. So this is what I found out all those years about those fake prophecies. They're not true. They're not accepted by the church officially. It was just a few people's opinion.
What was the name of the book again?
There is no book actually. It's personal research from books, not just from a book.
Few different books. Oh, okay.
And also from people that I had the personal contact with them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's mostly I can say how do you call it, an allegory meaning of those prophecies, kind of. But it's not. This has never happened with any other nation in the history, right? So why should that happen today with the Greeks, actually? And we have all this apostasy since 1920 until today, with a new calendar, with ecumenism. Why should God allow the patriarchate to get released by the Turks and the Greeks to build up this empire? We shouldn't forget that the empire was collapsed because of the openings of the emperors to the west, to the heresies, right? Filioque, we had the Pope. We had the Florencia, how do you call it, synod in 1439. So
right, the Florence Synod and pseudo Synod. So I agree completely, and I think I'm grateful that you as a native Greek and somebody who's familiar with Mount Athos, etc., has done that research, because it is. You have to understand that it is so prevalent on the American convert internet, among especially a lot of the Westerners, with the fighting from within people, etc., and they will take anything, no matter how heretical, if it comes from some elder or some Greek bishop, because I don't understand the logic. I think they just assume this is what Orthodox Greece thinks, and it's not. It's not
exactly. I will prove that what you just said, Father Joseph, with an evidence. Saint Cosmas Etolos, back at 1750s, 1770s, he said a few prophecies. The majority of them, they happened. They came true, right?
Mhm.
So, but he never ever mentioned any name of any marble king. And we are talking about 1750s. So he never mentioned any Saint John Vatazis or Constantine the
Paleologians,
11th, the
yeah.
Paleologian. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's a proof that all those are fake prophecies that grew up at 1950s and later. So the bad thing is that unfortunately, many modern elders from Mount Athos they believed on those and they started spreading them all over. Uh, people started, they are telling. They keep saying that you know what, Elder Paisius said that prophecy, Elder Porphyrius said that prophecy, Elder Ephraim of Arizona said that prophecy. Personally, I do believe that they said something like that, but
Yeah.
they all agree with Saint Cosmas Etolos prophecies without names, without marble kings, without any of those legends, right? So, and personally, my father actually met Elder Paisius in
Oh,
person
well.
back
Okay.
in 1992, and he was loved by him. Actually, my
Wow.
father was loved by him, and it was actually not for prophecies. My father is not that person. It was about debating. It was after after the Patriarch Bartholomew. He actually became patriarch 1991. My father visited him at 1992, I think, and it was the first visit of the patriarch to the Pope in Rome. And the debate that my father had with Elder Paisius was that why did the patriarch see liturgies, which means they had common liturgy with the Pope, and Elder Paisius told him they didn't see liturgies and they didn't have common liturgy. They symbrosephithika, they just had common prayers, which is again, it's forbidden by the church law, right?
Right.
So, and my father existed in that. No, they see liturgies and they had common liturgy, and Elder Paisius slapped him, saying, "I shouldn't accept you. Just keep going." And he threw them out. He kicked them out of the place. So that was a debate between those two. But
Wow.
yeah, but the point is that I would like to say a few things about him, if you allow me,
Sure.
about Elder Paisius. He actually wasn't at all what they say today. He was a very ascetic, charismatic, and an amazing elder. Uh, no matter from my our personal experience with him, the thing is that the patriarch was new back then, right? It was only 1 year patriarch, and the elder Paisios had a willing for him to change things in an orthodox way, in a better way. So when he visited the patriarch Bartholomew, uh, people are telling that he supposedly said he is the best patriarch that God could give us. That's fake. That's fake. He said that between the two candidates, he was the best. The second candidate was Iakovos Koukousis, the Archbishop of America, and everybody knows that he was way worse than Bartholomew, right?
Mhm.
So, and this one can be proved from the holy community of Mount Athos. All the monks and the priest monks were there, and they heard that, so they spread it like this. But the people, the Patriarch Bartholomew's, people, they started changing it into that fake thing. Uh, Another thing about him is that he wrote one book one book only with alphabetic mistakes in a purpose.
Okay.
So Elder Paisios had two monks with him, two students, how we say, right? So Ευθύμιος and Christodoulos. I think that if I'm not wrong. So those two monks, after Elder Paisios passed away, they disappear from his home, Panagouda, the Keli that he was living. Why? What happened to them? Why people are not calling them, online or in television to talk about their elder, about their spiritual father? Nobody even knows them. They just disappear them because uh, they would say they couldn't actually write books about Elder Paisios. So Elder Paisios gave them a strict, direct order. Nobody should never write books about me. You will publish this book that I wrote, and with the alphabetic mistakes. That was his order.
Wow.
Nobody kept it. They published this book. This book is an amazing book based on Saint Isaac the Syrian, Isaac the Syrian.
Yep.
Very good, very nice spiritual book. With his analysis at Saint Isaac Syrian teaching, but nobody has it with the alphabetic mistakes according to the order. There are 114 books written about him.
Wow.
So I would like to point that out. And the reason that actually they asked them, there is a priest monk named Arsenios. What's his last name? He's in a monastery in Lamia area of Greece. Katelaros, Arsenios Katelaros. He was connected with Elder Paisios before he becomes monk. And he actually was told by Elder Paisios that there are going to be many, many people writing books and telling that Saint Elder Paisios wrote them, but it wasn't. It will not be Elder Paisios who wrote it, but they self the Planisios. Planisios, you know what Planisios means? Plani, the one who is falling into fakes and those things. So it's not going to be Elder Paisios, but their selves who are writing those books. And this is actually a very big proof about him, that all those books they're writing about him, they are fake. They are not from Elder Paisios. They might be nice books. They might be very spiritual. They might be, deeply spiritual and helpful. Okay, yes, but they are not Elder Paisios books. This is something that I wanted to point out about him.
That's a very good point.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm trying to understand this person, because now they seem to have paused themselves. Okay, all right, yeah, there's something odd about this. I'm just waiting. I want this fellow to unmute himself so he can kind of. He wants to join the chat, but he does. It seems it's some kind of virtual camera. We have had instances on the show where people have tried to hijack the chat with even perverse imagery to that end. We haven't seen any of that lately, but occasionally when somebody comes on who can, I hate that you're debunking the beliefs of, I hate a lot of deluded people, that we deal with on a regular basis. And that can drive someone to even demonic anger. I'm not saying that that's the case with you, Skibidi, but I just wish you had a more reliable setup or if you would talk, but without the camera, just on the mic, we could hear you, but you kept that muted. Let me see here. What do we have here? Father Antonio says very fascinating. Anonymous Man 15 says, "What do you guys think of Elder Ephraim of Arizona?" I don't know, Zelotes, what's your opinion on Elder Ephraim? I mean, I would assume it's pretty much the same as ours.
I met him actually back at 2004.
Okay.
He was very actually spiritual person. I didn't have a lot of conversation about him, and to be honest, he was a charismatic priest monk. So that's how he managed to build, I think, 14 monasteries all over around the world, in Italy, in the US, and whatever. So you cannot build monasteries out of nothing, right?
Right.
So, of course, he was a very, very charismatic priest monk. What I've heard lately was that his monastery is actually thinking to break up with Archbishop Elpidophoros of the U.S. and joining Rockers or something like that. I have heard that from a very accurate source, but I don't want to mention the name. Anyway, so the thing is that, Archbishop Elpidophoros is making a lot of, how do you call it, very bad things, right? Supporting gays and lesbians and all those, women entering in the altar while liturgy.
And yep.
All those things. He's like outside of Orthodoxy. He's living outside of Orthodoxy. And that makes sense for them to turn their back to him.
Yeah. I agree. Okay. Atomic Lead says, thanks to Zelotes for the inside information on the various pseudo prophecies. A lot of people hear this stuff, and so it's great that you pointed that out. Adrian Wyatt says, we do have evidence of people becoming hidden Orthodox Christians. First in Russian archives was related by we know about the Colonel Philip Ludwell, etc. And people have become not necessarily hidden per se. They probably just didn't have access to a church in those times. But it's not the same thing. That's just people with circumstances, like a lot of people in this chat who have to go looking for a church, etc. Let me see here.
As about that, I would like to say something, Father Joseph, if you allow me.
Sure.
I would suggest the people, because I've seen that many, many times, at least in Greece, not to join the church because of the prophecies taking Constantinople back, or Russia becoming strong, or Bulgaria becoming strong, or Serbia becoming strong, etc. This is a great mistake. We should be interesting about the heavenly Constantinople, about the heavenly Saint Sophia. For me, I received this prophecy as a challenge. We should relieve, actually set free our heart from the sin. Our heart is Constantinople. The sin is the Turks and any Turks. And also our mind from all the temptations, and replace it with God, with spiritual life. This is Hagia Sophia. This is the temple of our, soul. Our soul is Constantinople and Hagia Sophia. We are occupied by the sin, by the temptations. We are being occupied by all those things running around us, and we are not able to see clearly God's calling for repentance, for a spiritual life, and focusing on the salvation of our souls. Let's put it in another way. We're going to live here 80 years, 90 years. Let's say we got this Constantinople and Hagia Sophia. What's the point? We're going to die anyway, and we're going to be living up there forever. So that's where we should be kind of invest our prayers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
This is the best thing to focus. It's actually to focus our souls in the heavenly Jerusalem, in the heavenly kingdom, the eternal kingdom, the eternal empire, with the best emperor, which is Jesus Christ himself. He will never lose any battle or any politics fails. that's where we should be focusing. That's something I would like to ask from the people instead of running to the church for prophecies.
Well, I really appreciate it. I think a lot of the people in our chat and future viewers are going to appreciate it. Absolutely right. That is not the reason we come to the church. We come to the church for the truth of the faith, not chasing after who we think is going to win in a prophetic game of Risk. So definitely, I appreciate that input, Zelotes, and we appreciate having you on. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much too.
No problem. In that case, okay, somebody else has popped on pretending to be InfoWars. It looks like we've got a couple of people who've wanted to come on. I haven't quite put them on, A, because I don't know who they are. B, it seems like they showed up when fake Brother Diamond showed up to curse in the chat. One is pretending to be Alex Jones. He's got his thing paused, but it's a shirtless Alex Jones, and I have a feeling I know that that's going to be something perverse. It also doesn't have a real name. I'm just going to boot that one. You don't even have a real name, bro. And Skibbity here, who seems to not be able to get a... Okay, and you just cursed me out with a racial slur, and goodbye. Okay. All right, so now people have to authenticate. So the people who desperately wanted to get on, in this case, I know you're on, Georgios, and Zelotes, thank you. Thank you for that. But the other guys that popped in doing all the talk, nice try, though. We have always had an open Q&A for people who are actually interested in having a discussion. Unfortunately, that was abused one time with a person who almost successfully got on to broadcast something pornographic. So now I am careful when it's somebody I don't recognize, because they managed to pretend to be somebody I did recognize very easily. I fell for it, and that was terrible. That will not happen again, and we take these seriously. So, as you can see, it worked in this case because, okay, well, Lotus is back. Hold on. Hello.
Yeah. You popped me out, sorry.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you were. Okay, yeah, you had kind of. Well, I figured you just had left, but that's fine. In this case, it's actually 10:59. We've gone 2 hours and a quarter. So I would like to just quickly say, first off, thank you to everyone, to our guests who spoke, to Bishop Enoch, to Zelotes, to our listeners, to those who had questions and had comments, and those who support our mission. Support the channel. We at NFTU need your help. Support by subscribing or donating at nftu.net, on GiveSendGo, or on Odyssey. We remember all of you in our prayers, and thank you for all the support for NFTU. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.